Hello. My name is Simone, and you are very welcome at our April webinar powered by our fantastic partners from BNY Mellon, Barclays, and Connected Places Catapult. And today I'm really thrilled that we're going to be talking about people's first role in their careers, or maybe their new role, and all those steps in between. Nobody has one set route throughout their career. We talk about this all the time when we do our monthly power up events. Everyone's journey is different, and whether you're starting your career, whether you're looking to sort of go as, oh gosh, I've been doing this and I want to do something different, or I'm stepping into a new role. Everyone has different experiences. And here at Northern Power Women and the Power Collective, we want to provide those actionable insights that you can take with you through your life and your work. And we're hoping that today's webinar with our fantastic guests will do just that. And I am really looking forward to chatting with them about where their challenges started or where their journey started, the challenges along the way, and all of those things that you overcome and you gain experience across along your individual journeys. Please do keep the conversation going throughout today's chat. Please do, whether you're joining us on LinkedIn, whether you're joining us on Twitter, or you're joining us on YouTube, or you're playing catch up, then please do feel free to put the comments in there. Obviously, if you're watching on catch up, then just leave the comments. But if you've got any questions that you would like to put to any of our panel today, then please do pop them in the chat, and please do introduce each other, because introduce yourselves as well, because we love to know where people are joining us from today, and I'm making you very welcome in today's chat. So please do get in that, and do use the hashtag as well. So we're early careers today. So I'm now delighted to introduce you to our fantastic panel. We've got Rachel, Jennifer, and Sean, who I'm going to hand over to introduce themselves. Rachel, welcome to the webinar today.
Great, and it's really good to be here today. So my name's Rachel Gardner-Poole, and I work as the Chief Operating Officer at Connected Places Catapult, which is the UK's innovation accelerator we work in the areas of city, transport and place.
Thank you. Jennifer Donnelly.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to join the panel today. My name is Jen Donnelly. I lead people engagement for group technology service management within Barclays in the Northwest, and my role is very much kind of aligned to people and culture, and specifically early careers as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And now live to New York City, Sean, welcome.
Morning, everyone. So yeah, my name's Sean. I'm based in Manchester, but I'm traveling this week. So thanks for inviting me. I'm a Manchester boy. I am the head of our corporate trust operations business. And I'm also the site exec for BNY Mellon in Manchester. I'm very proud to be. So thanks for the invite, Simone.
Oh, and congratulations on the new role, and thank you for getting up early. I know it's early there. I hope you've got some coffee to fuel you through our fantastic discussions. Rachel, one of the things that we have conversations about so often is what route do I take? I'm really passionate about this. Is it possible that passion can really come into starting, as a starting place for setting those professional goals? Is it possible? How do you set and stick to those goals that will literally catapult you forward? Excuse the pun. We couldn't help it.
Yeah, so definitely. So, I mean, since I was about 6 years old, I had this fascination with flying and planes and aviation, even though that wasn't, it wasn't my family's background, and we certainly didn't have any money to be able to afford for flying lessons. But I had this real kind of determination. And actually, as a teenager, I wrote out a list of things that I wanted to achieve in life. And one of those was to learn to fly. So that was kind of my main focus. So to be honest, right until I was in my early 40s, I wasn't really focused on a career as you might traditionally think of it. I was more focused on, can I travel the world, and can I learn to fly, and can I work in aviation? So that was kind of my main focus. So certainly that, it's resulted in a career of kind of over 25 years actually of working in aviation in different sorts, from commercial aviation to military jets to all sorts of different things, as well as I did actually get to learn to fly as well.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing. What a great way to kick off there, I think. But I think, that whole setting those goals early on. I mean, I had no real idea what I wanted to be when I was sort of at that, that age. I remember filling in these questionnaires at school thinking, gosh, I knew more what I didn't want to do. And I remember somewhere down the line, somehow found myself ticking a box about the military, and I went off and joined the Royal Navy. And I always say now it was the best thing I ever did, but I didn't really know how I kind of got there. Sean, where did you start? What was your first role? And did you have fears or worry about where you would start out?
Yeah, it's funny. So a lot of people that I speak to, they kind of accidentally fall into careers. I was working in a pub and I saw an advert for the Bank of New York. I was just finishing my A levels. I thought I'll take a year out. I don't really know what I want to do. I was kind of interested in law, but I was done with education at that point, and I thought I need a break. And so I saw this advert. I applied, and I'm really fortunate to join a huge firm. And so I think no matter what you're passionate about, if you join a huge firm, you can find something that suits your skill set, your passion, your interest. I think if you do something for your career that is genuinely and authentically something you enjoy and are interested in, then you'll flourish in it and you'll thrive. And the amount of people I've spoken to in the past couple of weeks in this new role, who all tell me they kind of accidentally found themselves in a particular position, but they love it because they found something that's really captivates their interest, and they've been super successful as a consequence.
Do you think accidental is right? Do you think actually it's just there, but sometimes do you think like imposter syndrome gets in the way sometimes, and we kind of badge it as accidental because we think, oh God, if I say it out loud I want to do it, people might take the mickey out of me or whatever. Yeah. Or do you think there's a bit of that in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think high performing leaders should probably spend 50% of their time on strategy and execution and 50% on coaching, right? And so I think whether that's in the insurance industry or the legal profession or finance, I think it's about the skills, and then ultimately you build the experience. So I've worked at the firm for almost 20 years, and so I've got 2 decades of financial services experience. But the thing that keeps me here, keeps me interested, and that I enjoy is the coaching, the strategy, the kind of outward looking across the globe and how we can help our clients. So I think I'm never going to accidentally end up as a jockey or as a footballer because I just don't have those skills. But I think we lean towards our strengths, and then we find something that we're interested in, and we keep going. And if you're persistent and insistent and consistent, you can ultimately achieve anything you want.
Absolutely, everything is possible, and everyone has to start somewhere. And I think I reflect on sort of every sort of role I've done along the way, whether it be the military, whether it be hospitality industry, whether it's set my own business up. I think there's always something right at the start. I always wanted to have been in that role 2 years. So I always wanted to be 2 years ahead, because I always had that whole, I don't want to be at the beginning and be the new girl, or be the whole, I've really no idea what I'm doing. And that can be a challenge. Jen, how do you overcome those feelings that can sometimes sort of overwhelm you? I'm asking for myself.
I definitely think starting out, in your career or your profession, or even making that decision to move to a new role, a new team, or, a brand new professional career line can be very, very daunting and overwhelming. And I think there are some things you could potentially think about or do to help overcome those feelings and really help to mobilize yourself toward your own career and professional goals. For me, it's all really been about setting realistic goals and achievable tasks. So, starting off small and taking those tasks step by step, and kind of enabling you to make that progress towards your ultimate career goals. Not everybody will know where they want to end up in terms of their career. And I think that goes back to some of the previous conversation earlier around, taking those opportunities when they're presented, and really kind of taking those leaps and steps into something new. I think support is super important as well. So surrounding yourself with people who are going to provide you that support and really believe in you and encourage you to take those next steps, whether that's family or friends or mentors or colleagues within, a workplace that you might currently be in. And then really, once you've kind of understood those goals and where you want to be, taking action, so really kind of putting yourself out there and taking those steps so that you start to work towards your goals and reach your career objectives.
I love that. We've got some actions before we even started. Surround yourself with great people, whoever those people may be in your world or your community. Set those goals and then take action. So it's a bit like crack on, isn't it?
I think.
And Rachel, sorry, go on, Jen.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, I think, your career is essentially a good 80-90% in your own gift to take where you want it to be. And I think it's really understanding the steps that you need to take to help you progress, and then ultimately taking them.
And the thing that I know we're really passionate about here, and I know you all are, is that, you're never on your own. There's always someone you can ask, and that's irrespective of whatever level you're at whether it's your own business, whether you're within a massive organization or a small organization, you're never on your own. There's always something someone you can ask and someone you can go to have help. And I don't think I think I can say this hand on heart and never come across anyone that if I say, I could do with you just having a chat with someone because they're at this crossroad, welcome Ellie, Amanda and Caitlin to the conversation today. Thank you as well. But if any of those individuals there wanted to ask for help or support, people go, absolutely, just point them my way, give me that phone number or that email on and I'll get on. Rachel, how did you get into your career and, did you have people along the way that helped you?
Yeah, so I definitely did. As I said, my kind of motivations weren't so much about climbing a ladder. I think people often think about a career as climbing a ladder, but I think of it more like rock climbing, that you kind of might want different experience for different things. But I've certainly had, I've had quite a lot of challenges along the way, certainly working in a very male-dominated environment for the vast majority of my career. And I've had all sorts of things like line managers tell me, this was 20 years ago, but line managers tell me that I shouldn't apply for promotion because I was female and I might take away that opportunity from a male colleague, if I went off and got married and had children, that wasn't fair on that male colleague. So I've actually been, encouraged not to apply for promotion, or certainly been encouraged many times not to learn to fly because I was female. But then I've also often had real kind of strong mentors and people around me who've been kind of egging me on and I suppose give me confidence, and having people to talk to I think is so important.
Absolutely. It's having that listening ear, and almost, I always think whether it's mentoring, whether it's coaching, and you're Sean, you talked about coaching, whether or not it's, just some of those informal chats. I think it's having that listening ear. It's that saying it out loud, isn't it? It's saying it out loud and go, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen, isn't it? Or I can manifest it. Sean, we talk about career progression, and it's not necessarily about moving from place to place, except you are at the moment, India, New York, Manchester, you're global. But for anyone who wants to progress internally, as say, whether it be a medium-sized organization, large organization, do you say it out loud? Do you wait for it to come to you, or do you be bold and get the ball rolling?
I think it's different situations, different times, different scenarios. So just on a very personal level, I've worked hard for 20 years at the same firm, and I've moved around a lot, and I've asked for those opportunities. But equally, the start of my year looks very different to how it looks today. So at the beginning of the year, I was quite settled in my job. I'm expecting my first child in August, and I was thinking, I've got a great team around me. I know my stuff technically. I know what I'm doing. I've got a strategy. I'm all good. And then 2 seconds later, my boss says, we've got a problem over here and I need you to come help us sort it. And I also need you to be the site executive for Manchester. And so those opportunities are not ones that I'm willing to see, pass me by. And so I think there's been parts of my career where I thought I'm really ready for something else. I'm going to go and actively seek it and talk about that, and be vocal about it. And then there's been others where it's taken me completely by left field, but I've embraced it and I've just ran with it because I think life's too short not to, really. And why not?
I love the idea. I can see you in that American vibe now, the quarterback going right from the back. I'm going to get this all wrong now. I'm not an American football expert, but you're literally running from the back, taking that pass. I have no idea where this analogy is going. Anyway, but is it, has that always worked for you? You've talked about this one came from left field, but talking about saying it out loud, expressing those ambitions to your manager, or I'm guessing sometimes it depends on what type of manager it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to have really strong leadership, really strong managers, and I think there's been a couple of occasions where I've not had those, and I think that speaks as much as the ones who are great, right? So you learn what not to do and how not to behave. But I think I've also for me, not having a strong leader or strong manager is like game changer. And so that's been probably where I've been the most vocal about. I really want to move. I really want something different. And quite honestly, it's probably because that wasn't really working for me with that person. And I think if you're in a strong, if you've got a strong reputation, a strong brand, and you've worked hard, the reality is people are going to say, what can we do for you within the firm? We're a huge organization. How can we help you find something that is mutually beneficial, where you're going to thrive and we're going to benefit from your skill? And you don't need to be at a firm 20 years to do that. We can identify, recognize talent really very, very quickly. So we can see within the first couple of months if someone's great, and if they're in their own job and they raise their hand and say that, 9 times out of 10, we're going to move people around and find something that's more suitable. I mean, an interview is 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. We can't determine someone's career in that time. So we need to get people into the firm, figure out their strengths, find out what they enjoy and what they love doing, and then we'll find them the perfect job.
Do you know what? And that echoes something. I remember a job probably a decade and a half ago, and I remember going down to London for the role, and it was a bit unclear what the role was, and it was more of a chat with the boss than the big boss. And it was, his view was, what, there'll always be a space for good people.
Yeah.
We will, because we've all got like challenges or problems to solve or things to be done, and we will make that work. And and that's kind of stuck with me. And I think sometimes it's a bit harder to do. It's harder and easier to do it in a small business, but I think sometimes it's about unlocking that awesomeness. And I just wanted to flash back to something you said, Rachel, when you talked about that blocker that you had when you can't possibly be a pilot, you're female. How did you deal with that, respond to that? And because other people have challenges along the way when someone wants to kind of block or sort of interfere with your plan.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose I'm fortunate in one way, in the sense that if someone says I can't do something, then that makes me all the more determined to show that I will and can. So I suppose I've got that kind of internal determination, which is helpful. But I also think, as I said earlier, it is about talking, to other people, kind of getting people who may have gone through similar experiences, and then also being open. One of the things that I do and love doing is kind of mentoring and helping other women in particular in aviation who have, and still now can often have challenges or feel as if, things aren't quite right, and being able to offer that kind of advice. But it often is, I think, as someone said earlier on, about surrounding yourselves with good kind of positive people does make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And so Jen, let's say that I'm an early career, or someone, in the first maybe 5-10 years of my career, if not less, or I'm not even in the world of work yet, or someone who is switching careers, has studied something, don't want to do that anymore, or has been with an organization. It's a bit overwhelming because I know I'm not fulfilled now where I am at. I'm not passionate about where I am. I might like the people, but it's just not fulfilling me. Where do I start?
So I think, again, there are a few things to think about in this type of scenario. So understand, be self-aware, understand where your strengths and your areas of development are. So what are you really good at, and where do you maybe need to improve? And then I think using those strengths and areas of development, potentially explore different careers, different roles within your organization today, or something completely different, and look for those roles that really align to your skills, your interests, and your values. I think that's a really great first step. Network. I think it's really, really important. Join professional organizations. Using platforms such as this today is a really great way to get knowledge and hear about experiences across different organizations and different skill sets, etc. And if you're able to gain relevant experience in a career profession, and take opportunities to gain experience in your desired field where they're placed in front of you as well. And again, going back to that kind of short-term, mid-term planning, sort of creating a little bit of a plan, identifying the steps that you need to take to switch your career or change up your role a little bit, or go down a completely different path in terms of your career plan. So I think yes, overall it can be a really challenging and daunting process again, but try and gain some self clarity and direction on where you want to proceed and where you want to take your career, and then take those steps.
Any other Sean, you got any other top tips for someone at that sort of start? I know this is an area that you're massively passionate about. I've known you for probably since right at the start when we started working with Bank of New York. You know, you were there and always so passionate and supportive about everything we were doing.
Yeah, I think the network is definitely right, Jen. Having that that access to people who can give you a perspective is really important. And I think confidence, like if you know your craft, if you learn your processes, if you're an engineer or you're an operations person or whatever line of work you're in, I think if you know your craft and you've worked really hard and you've accomplished something, like that execution is really key, because it gives you confidence to talk about something you've achieved to a broader group. So we have a lot of visitors come to Manchester. We, be the mayor of Manchester or senior execs, and for our younger early careers professionals, they're talking about things they're doing. They're not necessarily just saying, I've got a degree in X, Y, and Z. They're talking about things that they've achieved. And I think if you can really knuckle down, get your head down and work on something that you can be proud to celebrate, those conversations can be probably the most opportune for you, because then if you've done that, you can be picked up and moved around to kind of start to think about how you can spread and empower that for the rest of the firm or the rest of the city or whatever function you're in. So I think just execution is really key as well.
And I think there's something in, so whether you work for Connected Places Catapult, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for Barclays, whether you work for Bank of New York, is you're not, or like, sort of my experience, sort of in the Royal Navy, not everybody is the same. It's how can you be your best authentic self, getting your job done, getting your role done, but bringing your whole self to work, I think is massively important. And, that whole personal brand, you mentioned that as well, Sean. You talked about sort of a few questions, but you talked about about what you said about what my brand is. It depends on what your brand is. That personal brand thing's quite key, but sometimes I think people think, oh, that's not me because I'm only doing this job over here. Everyone's got a personal brand, haven't they?
I think everyone's got a brand, and that's whether that's the way their personality shines through, something that they're good at, something that they've done before that you think they could do again on a bigger scale. So and those brands change. So for the past couple of years in the job I had previously in the firm, it was a very high pressure, very fluid job, right? So every day we're processing $3 trillion, and if any part of that process stops or is broken or goes wrong, there's a lot of clients who are impacted by that. And so my brand in the last few years has been someone who is trusted to get stuff done if there's an incident, if there's a crisis or a technology problem. So that kind of incident response and that kind of client engagement became my brand. But prior to that, it was building teams, and prior to that, it was building strategy. So I think your brand can evolve and your brand can change based on the role you're in. But I think it ultimately comes down to your personality. And I think trying to be authentic to that is really, really key, because it's super difficult to try to project something that you're really not and then to sustain it. And I think if you can just really dig down to think, I really enjoy working with people, or I really enjoy working by myself on a very specific problem. I really enjoy building a plan. I really enjoy, creating a team. That will shine through if it's authentic. And so I think just stay true to yourself. That would be my number one piece of advice.
I think that's something that you talked about, Jen, was being that self-aware and almost having that audit. I think that fits into that, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with Sean anymore with what you just talked us through. I think having that personal brand and actually understanding that inventory of kind of what are my values, what are my interests and passions, and actually what are my skills, and that will really kind of help you start to draw out how you want to progress in your career, where you want to move that. And going back to Rachel's point earlier around, your career path is not always going to be vertical. Quite often, and going back to your climbing example earlier, sometimes you will be traversing horizontally and you will be navigating your way through an organization or a function to get to where you ultimately want to be within your career.
And thank you for some of the comments, Catherine. The key to recruitment for the candidate is to ask the employer, how can I help you, not the other way around. And Caitlin, I totally agree with Sean. Ensuring that people are playing to their strengths and I love that, their zone of genius is essential for productivity, but also happiness and well-being at work. Ellie, we've got a question from Ellie. And what advice do you have for a working class woman who want to become more confident in progressing into higher levels, but are often up against individuals who have had greater access to education and relevant opportunities? Rachel, can I come to you to start to start that one?
Yeah,
Thanks,
definitely.
Ellie.
Yes, thank you, Ellie, for the question. Yes, that was definitely my experience. Without a doubt, I grew up with, my parents didn't even have a car or on free school meals. So even the thought of going to university at that time seemed impossible, albeit back then there was much more funding than there is now. So again, it comes back to those same principles. I think I also had the advantage because everything, all dreams seemed impossible. So therefore, I wrote down a list of things which literally just seemed like dreams. But once I started to kind of tick box one and kind of think I've done that, it kind of almost made me think, well, actually, maybe I can do all these other things. Maybe I could be a pilot. Maybe I could live in Australia. Maybe I could live in America, and so it made, I suppose, it opened up the world. So I would still go back to, yes, of course, it is harder. Without maybe having some of the other opportunities that other friends, other people may have. I'm not dismissing that at all, but I think, again, coming back to those goals, having those clear goals, looking for that. We talked about kind of mentors, and networking is a really, really important thing, and I wish someone had told me that when I was earlier on in my career. But again, finding those people who might be able to open doors for you, again, I think is a real key point of this.
I don't think it's ever too early to start networking. No. I don't think it's ever any too early. And whether that is, your teacher or someone that you speak to on the way to work or whatever it is, there's always that conversation to be had. Jen, I know, you've involved Barclays. We do these monthly power ups. And one of the reasons that we created them was to help build social capital and so that network around individuals who don't. So Ellie, get yourself along, to those, or if it's for a friend, tell your friend to get along to one of these sessions, because we're always overwhelmed with amazing mentors who are there to listen, to chat. It's not about jumping into a full-time, long mentoring relationship that you think, oh, that's a bit scary or overwhelming. This is about people who've got time to listen. And it's that time, that hour session that we do. I'm not pitching them. I am absolutely pitching these because, that 1 hour is about you. Make some time for you, I think, for me. Jen, sorry, there's me. Get on my high horse.
No, you're absolutely right. It's great, and it is about making time for yourself. Going back to a point earlier, you are ultimately in charge of your career in reality, for the most part, certainly. So you have to invest in yourself, because you could be the only person who does really, in terms of getting to where you want to be and achieving your dreams and passions, and sometimes having that sheer grit and determination, and having something you're absolutely passionate about is, you're halfway there, right? And I think that's really important.
And any wisdom from you, Sean? I know that we're there. I can see it.
Yeah, and I can't answer this from a female perspective, but I'm one of 6. I grew up on a council estate in Lee, which is somewhere between Manchester and Liverpool. And I actually I credit that as being the thing that has got me to where I am today, because that background, that having to kind of hustle and just be bold and be brave and get it done, because I didn't have certain advantages that other people had, it made me work really hard and it made me really resilient. And so the thing that can be perceived as a disadvantage, I would just like to flip and say it's been my greatest advantage.
Brilliant. And that comes back to you being you. doesn't it?
Yeah.
It comes back to owning who you are. And I think this is why I love having these conversations, or enabling these conversations, because I think, you know, this is where it kind of unearths the gems, the stories, the fact that actually I might be in New York, you know, but my path wasn't just like that, you know, and I think that for me is really important. One of the things I want to talk about, which I know all of the organisations and do, is volunteering is something that I think is something that I know as organisations, a lot of organisations are involved in. But what is the value, you know, tell us about the value of volunteering, Rachel, not just in terms of, it is about using your power for good, but as that self-development too.
Yeah, so I mean, I've personally found it incredibly valuable. You know, not only is it really enjoyable and passionate, and you get to meet different people, but I'll give you an example. One of the charities, one of the things that I wanted to do was fly planes out in Africa, because this was since I was 6 years old. I really wanted to help people, and I wanted to be a pilot. Now, for various reasons, that ended up not happening. I actually flying out in Africa, but I did start volunteering for that flying charity about 13, 14 years ago, volunteering and kind of raising money for them, and so going and speaking at events. And I'd say at that time, probably in my life and my career, I really wasn't that confident about public speaking or giving presentations. But by doing that, and it was a pretty safe environment, you know, because they're quite informal, but by doing that, that really did give me confidence in terms of giving presentations, and that then helps, like in the workplace, in terms of speaking up in meetings and things like that. So that's just one example, but current charity me and two friends set up, which helps people out in South Sudan, that, you know, I do the kind of website, I do the communications for that, and I would never say that was my background or skill set, but again, I found that really helpful additional skills, which I can then bring into my day job as well.
Amazing. Wow. It's always that adage, isn't it? If you want something done, give it to a busy person. And Ellie, you're very welcome. You know, we love enabling these panels to answer the questions, so thank you. Caitlin's got a question for you. You know, a lot of what has been said has been about identifying strengths, but can we give Caitlin any tips on how someone can build that belief in their abilities if they are doubting, you know, whether they're capable of ever having that big career or achieving that dream? Sean, how do you get that belief?
Yeah, I think platforms like this help, right? Because on LinkedIn and those kind of other professional platforms, we're all, you know, it's like Instagram, really. It's our best self, right? So it's our accomplishments, our achievements are the thing we're most proud of, but we don't often see people's struggles or the things that they've failed at, and they're often typically the things that make you stronger. So I think we have to have more honest conversations as senior people, to say that, you know, it's not always, I love the rock climbing analogy. I think it's perfect. It's not all a one-way street. You know, you can make mistakes. So I think finding really strong role models in your firm, in the organization, in the broader communities is a really key piece. But I think it's that thing where if you can see it, you can believe it, right? So if you can see other people doing things and you think, you know, I can do that, I'm competent, and so surrounding yourself, as someone mentioned earlier, with really great people, whether that's friends or family, that's kind of key to success as well. You want to be able to have role models that you can aspire to, but it's one thing to aspire to something. You need the guidance and you need the support. So proactively getting mentorship, proactively getting coaching, even just coming to platforms and hearing from people in a really authentic way can help guide you. And certainly we can do so much of that now with access to, you know, social media and LinkedIn and other kind of platforms as Northern Power Women, Northern Power Futures. I think they're there at your disposal, so use it.
Thank you. Jen, any other top tips on how you can really sort of have faith in that ability when, you know, we all have those moments, don't we? You know, I wake up very often, think I'm the worst entrepreneur in the world, you know, but I've got tons of passion, and then I kind of sort myself out a little bit. But, you know, how can we really help build that belief in your ability?
And this is something I absolutely resonate with completely. You know, for me, there have been times in my career where imposter syndrome is real. But I think, you know, again, to Sean's point around failure, I think one of the biggest obstacles that I've had to overcome is the acceptance that failure is something that is going to happen, whether that be a big or small. But really, it's how you respond to that that's really, really important, and how you learn from that. That will kind of really make the difference in your own confidence as well. And again, role models, support network is super important. But sometimes, as somebody who really struggles from a confidence perspective, and that self-belief, and it's something I still deal with today, even in the role that I'm doing now, it's really just taking that leap of faith, and sometimes just taking that risk, doing something that puts you out of your comfort zone, something like this, for example, that can really help bolster you in terms of from a confidence perspective. And sometimes it's just those little things all add up and can really help to build your self-confidence, self-belief, and self-worth. And I think all of those things combined are really important.
Amazing. Thank you, Caitlin. I really hope that helps, but equally, you're not on your own. And I think that network and ask for help, because people will say yes, guaranteed. Catherine's thrown us a great question: which high profile people inspire you? So I'm going to let that, you kind of think about that. And equally, those of you watching as well, I want to know, I'm going to throw that to you as well. So I'm going to let people think about that. But you've got there, you're going out, you've got your faith in your ability, you've got a bit of a plan, you've done your self-awareness audit, you're now going to take some action. You've set the goals, you're going to take some actions. You've got the interview, you've bagged it. Brilliant. I'm all excited, really want to work for this organization. Oh my goodness, it's the night before and I've suddenly gone, oh no, I'm petrified. I'm petrified. I'm going to be on the spot. It's like going back to exams again. How do you get over those jitters and that fear, Sean?
I think there's probably two things. So for me personally, again, as someone who I hate turning up underprepared, I think that's what gives me anxiety. So preparation is key, and I think that's about not just remembering everything that's on your CV and listing a bunch of skills and attributes and whatever. I think it's about your storytelling. What is it about you that is compelling to the firm, and making that elevator pitch. So that couple of minutes where you introduce yourself, you talk about your background, your skills, your experience, but you do it in a way that is really personalized to you. And the worst thing is an interviewer sitting down and someone just saying, every qualification they've got. Qualifications are great and they give us skills and attributes, but it's the presentation of that and how that kind of is going to help the firm that's really key. And then just thinking about like your physical, the physicality of it. I recently learned this thing where if you are very, very nervous, if you hold your thumb in your mouth and you blow for 10 seconds, biologically it does something to calm you down, and just exerting some of that energy to kind of make you feel like you're calm and you're clear and you can present yourself really well. So preparation and then exerting some energy beforehand just to calm the nerves.
I'm a big fan of the Wonder Woman pose, so, there's
I've heard
absolutely many times I go to the loo, I'll shut the door, obviously, and I'll literally, and it absolutely does work.
There's this thing about making yourself bigger, right? There's a thing about making yourself bigger, making yourself more confident and turning up, essentially.
Absolutely. And it's always hard for me to make them. I'm 5'4". It's really difficult, but I give it my best shot. Rachel, any top tips for kind of just nailing those jitters?
Yeah, so I think I definitely agree with what Sean said about preparation. I think prepare really. And certainly the things that I've done over the years is I've actually got a bank I've written down kind of questions that I think I might be asked, and then I've actually drafted answers, and then I've actually practiced the answers. And whilst you won't always get asked those certain questions, then often the answers fit in, if that makes sense. So I think preparing, and then once you've done it once, and it takes ages to do it the first time, but once you've done it once, you've still got that for future as well, and then add to it, as you go through your career. The second thing is, I think, to remember also about the interviewers. So certainly, I've done various interviews, a lot of interviews, to be honest, over my career, but certainly in the early days, I used to feel really nervous interviewing, because I was kind of, I felt as if also, there is something about you as the person being interviewed and deciding whether you want to work for that company. So, for all you know, those people on the interview panel may also be feeling nervous as well. So putting in that context as well, that they are human, I think helps. Certainly has helped me over the years.
And sort of building on that, Jen, sort of, because it is, like Sean said, it's beyond the qualifications and the CV, and is about that storytelling. How do you show that employer? How you kind of going, employ me? Or actually, I think there's another question in there. I'm going to give you two-part. Is it's selling yourself to people you already know. So if you're going for that internal goal, or it's someone else, how do you get through that? Because you think, oh, they know what I do, and I don't want to be braggy about it.
Sometimes I actually think that's more of a challenge and more difficult, when you're being interviewed by people who know you, who know how you already operate in the workplace, and probably have a good sense of your skill set as well. So again, we keep coming back to the word authenticity, but I think that is super important. But also, I think even if it is, an internal promotion or an interview for a brand new role, think about, never forget the impact that you have in terms of your role today and what you're bringing to the table. So most of us will work as part of a team, but you will have, as an individual, there will be elements of kind of your day-to-day role, whether it's a delivery, a project, whatever that might be. You are impacting that in some way, shape or form. So never underestimate that personal impact that you will have. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and it's really having. I remember one time getting interviewed by someone, a panel of people I knew, and I was absolutely, oh, you know what I do, I did that, and I absolutely undersold myself. And I remember afterwards asking, didn't get the job, I asked for feedback, and I remember from that moment, it was like a bit like exactly what Sean and Jen and Rachel have said. It's almost create those stories, not like, oh, are you resilient? Yes, I'm resilient, I did this. It's almost bringing that to life in a story, and really own your success. One of the reasons we do, and we've created the environments and the communities we do, is to encourage people to high five their achievements, because it's really important. And I love, we've got a comment here. I love the Cadbury's and Prince's Trust campaign where they had celebrities talking about their own doubts. And that's that visible role model, and that actually being authentic is really key. So let me throw it to you. Let me come to you, Rachel. Who is the high profile people or person that inspires you?
Yeah, so I'd say it was Jacinda Ardern, so the previous New Zealand Prime Minister. And it was really because, I think she really demonstrated to the world the importance of empathetic leadership, that you can be strong, but you can still show real empathy. And I think that was just absolutely brilliant to the world. And even when she stood down, I remember the words she said, something along the lines of, a good leader knows when it's time to step down. And so she confidently, I think, demonstrated all the principles that I personally think are really key in leadership.
100%. Jen, who are yours?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit, if that's okay. So whilst probably not high profile to the rest of the panel or the audience, the person who inspires me the most is my grandma, Bob. So, she has overcome so many kind of personal adversities throughout her life. Her house was bombed during World War II when she was a child. She suffered personal loss, losing her husband at the age in her early 40s, and faced with kind of having to raise 4 children alone, and dealing with grief that way, being that kind of breadwinner, main wage earner, through the majority of her life, and now at the age of 87 is still going, is still, has that determination, and just her pure resilience is what has inspired me and has actually pushed me in terms of both my personal and professional life. So I know, I appreciate that doesn't really answer the question, but to me, she is probably one of the most high profile people on the planet.
And people may have heard me say this before, Northern Power Nana was absolutely a massive, not yours, not Bob, but, Isabella, that was absolutely my kind of role model, and the person who made me believe I could do anything I wanted, even play for Everton. Might need me now. Sean, yours.
I always find myself drawn to people who are really being self-sufficient, self-starting. So I think about like the Kamani family, and obviously PLT and Boohoo, and they started by selling clothes on a market stall. People like Stephen Bartlett, who had a very difficult upbringing, but he has gone on to be a super successful businessman, but he's really acutely aware of things like mental health. He's acutely aware of like how to interact with people. Some of his Diary of a CEO. I listened to the David Gandy one on the way here. I think people like that who they're super successful, but they reflect on that. They're humble in that, and they try to give back. I think they're the kind of people I'm drawn to most.
Absolutely. And I think normally I'd be saying now, what's your final top takeaway? But Sarah Nancy has just asked, what advice would you give to students who are not yet sure what they would like to do after graduation? Go for a grad scheme, go straight. So quick advice, quick for Sarah Nancy. Sean.
My advice would be things like apprenticeships, things like grad programs. They give you a flavor of multiple things, and you can find your strength and you can go with it. I think that was what I did. So that's my advice.
Jen?
Look at all your options. I think there are a multitude of different ways you can enter the working environment. Explore every single one of them and work out which one is the best option for you.
And Rachel?
And I'd say the same, go for options, but look at what you feel most drawn from a passionate point of view. What do you feel most passionate about? What would make you happy?
Absolutely goes back to where we started, which is that passion. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Sean, Rachel, Jen, I'm thanking you for bringing such great top tips into our conversation today, whether it's about storytelling, surrounding yourself with amazing people, set those goals, take actions, be self-aware, audit, take the opportunities is the one thing I'd say. My thing, Sarah and Answer, please join our power-ups. We do them every single month. You can find everything that we're doing across our community. We've got a community about 95,000. We've got a digital platform, wearepower.net. Please do stay connected. You can join, you can ask for help on there as well by making those connections. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you all of you today for being so lively in our chat. If you're watching on catch up, please do add some comments as well. We look forward to seeing you at our next event, which is our Power Up on Thursday, the 27th of April. But keep in touch with everything we're doing and keep the conversation going and join in on all our socials across Northern Power Women and the Power Collective. Thank you so much and look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Thank you.